Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about how to hit the 50-yard wedge shot. I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. All right guys, so let's talk about how to hit the 50-yard wedge shot. Now, I'm super excited today. Obviously, we're not at the Bethlehem Golf Club like normal. We are at the WESTIN Resort here in Savannah, in beautiful Savannah, a little chilly today, but we're here to talk about the 50-yard wedge shot, and I have with me Mr. Andrew Rice. Now, I would assume most all of you know who Andrew Rice is, but for those of you who do not, Andrew Rice is not only an expert on wedges, but an expert on all things golf. He's a top 50 Golf Digest coach. He is the #1 ranked coach in the state of Georgia. Some may say, like I said in the last video, maybe the best looking guy in Savannah. You can judge for yourself. But without further ado, let's bring Andrew in and let's talk about the 50-yard wedge shot. All right, guys, so let's talk about the 50-yard wedge shot. As I promised, Mr. Andrew Rice to my left.
Eric, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And we're going to talk today about the 50-yard wedge shot. And what Andrew and I really want to cover here are the basics, right? So
basics, straightforward stuff, just information to perhaps answer questions that your viewers might have.
Absolutely.
Where is the ball position? How do I set up? How far do I take it back? What do I think about on the way through? All of these questions we're going to try to answer today.
Let's dive in. I'm excited to pick Andrew's brain. Maybe let's switch spots here.
Okay.
You're going to take a setup.
For sure.
And so I'd love to hear maybe what are the top 1, 2, 3 things with the setup from a 50-yard shot that you would look for different from a full swing shot.
Okay, great. And Eric, I really think first, before we even get to setup, let's talk about club.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So many golfers that come to my 3-day golf schools, I see these 64, 65, 60-degree lofted clubs. And my experience in testing a lot of these players is they tend to perform better with that mid-lofted club, the 54, 55, 56 degree club.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to start with that. Let's make sure we're going to hit these pitch shots. I want you to try it. If you don't do it already, I want you to try it. Just go out there and explore, experiment a little bit with that lesser lofted, not the most lofted, second most lofted club in the bag.
Love it.
Setup. Let's get to your question. So setup, I'm always going to look for the feet. Chipping, I prefer a club head width apart. Pitching, we're going to go slightly wider. Let's maybe go to 2 club head widths apart.
Got it.
Okay. I don't want a full swing setup. Perhaps one of the biggest mistakes I see when it comes to pitching. We don't want that full swing setup. This is not a full swing. It's a finesse shot. And so spacing between the feet, 2 club head widths. Ball position, as you can see there, ball position is always, for all pitch shots, Eric, going to be in the middle of the stance. Okay, we're not looking to play with different trajectories when pitching. Chipping, certainly. We're going to move the ball position around for chipping. For pitching, we're going to keep it constant. My weight, 60-40, favoring the front foot. And alignment-wise, I'm going to be square. That's my target line there. Alignment-wise, I'm looking for, I'll say it this way, square-ish. If you want to get a little open, I'm good with that. I just don't want people getting too open at a drag.
Nothing drastic. Are you, Andrew, doing any maybe 60-40 pressure-wise?
Pressure-wise, I'm certainly 60-40.
Okay.
I'm favoring my front foot, and I really want to encourage golfers to get closer to the ball.
Yes.
Raymond Floyd once said, you can never get too close to a wedge shot, and I firmly believe that. Okay.
Love that.
Too often I see golfers standing too wide and too far away.
Yep.
Let's cozy up to your work. relatively square, 60-40, ball position in the middle, and that's a decent setup there. That's what we're looking for.
Can you do that one more time, Andrew?
Sure.
When you take your setup position then, are we keeping the shaft pretty neutral, slight lean towards the target?
Because ball position's in the middle,
Yeah.
okay? Keep in mind, if the ball position was way back there, I'd have tons of shaft lean, okay?
Yeah.
So ball position's in the middle, but because I've got that 60-40 favoring the front, I've got just a little hint of shaft lean.
Got it.
Okay, just a little hint of shaft lean. My club face, square to a nudge open, never closed
Got it.
at address, never
Yeah.
closed. Square to just a nudge open, I'm good with that for a starting point.
And all of those pieces for the wedges, the setup designed to make it easier for solidness of contact?
It's all about contact.
Yeah, got it.
Pitching, wedging, in particular pitching, is all about quality of strike. And if we can get the sole of the club to work in harmony with the ground, instead of it digging into the ground, I'm not a fan of divots when it comes to pitch shots at all.
Yep.
If we can get the sole of the club to glide along the ground underneath the golf ball, almost, you know, here's
let's see one.
this is illegal, so don't do this, okay? But if
Yeah.
I could somehow find a way to chip and pitch that way, where I've got that long flat spot where the club's gliding along the ground for 3 feet, think about it, I can't hit it thin and I can't hit it fat. Imagine if
Easy
we
game.
could take thins and fats out of everybody's wedge game.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you make your practice swings, okay, I'd love just to gain a sense of an understanding of, okay, yeah, I want the sole of the club to brush along the ground for as long as possible. That's going to make my quality of contact easier and
Yep.
ultimately more predictable.
Can we see you hit one, Andrew, just with that setup position like that in there?
Certainly. You got a tee?
You don't need one. I saw you hit a couple, man. You got this covered.
There you
so
go.
feet are close, right?
Feet are close, ball position. I'm going to make sure it stays in the middle. I typically want to get it a little forward.
Love it.
There we go.
And so when you do your
Low
setup
zinger.
pieces, and feet are close, right? The pressure a little bit forward. Some things we might see some players do is trying to get the handle too far forward,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Maybe trying to get the ball position too far back. And what are some things you might see like that? Let's use that example.
Sure.
Handle
sure.
too far forward, ball too back.
Hey, that's a killer. Okay. Ball position back. It's this idea of I've got to pinch down on the golf ball. I've got to trap the ball between the club face and the turf.
Yeah.
That cannot happen. We understand that. That cannot happen. But what happens in that situation is you can hit good shots that way. Just your margin of error gets very skinny. Okay.
Yep.
And you've got to fit that club onto the back of the ball perfectly. If you're an inch back, it's fat. If you're an inch forward, it's thin and blading over the back of the green.
We don't want to make it any harder than we have to.
We
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
There, we're, you know, that plane landing on the runway image I think is so good, but now we're taking our plane and really ramming it into the runway.
Yep.
We've got to be perfect as we pull out.
Yep.
Just makes hitting good shots, consistent shots, more of a challenge than they need to be.
I love it. And so the setup position's a good starting point, right?
Yeah.
But then obviously for us to hit the wedge shot, we got to make a backswing.
We've got to make a backswing. Got to make a backswing. And I
Yeah.
think the big question that people have here, Eric, is no wrists, lots of wrists, how far back, you know, that's a challenge. I think,
Yep.
you know, let's just say this. When I look at good pitchers, for somebody, for example, somebody like Jason Day or Steve Stricker,
Yep.
okay, not much in the way of wrist action. They're very, very good.
Yeah.
And then I look at players like a Luke Donald or a Sergio Garcia. Quite a bit of wrist action, something very different. And so I don't tend to lean towards no wrists or lots of wrists. I think it's somewhere in between.
Yep.
I don't want people to get excessively wristy. Almost the sense, I think, you know, if you could picture yourself with a medicine ball in your hand and you took your setup and you went back and you just lobbed that medicine ball down the range, that's the sense you want to have. There's not a ton of wrist set there. There's not much in the way of wrist action going on. And it's get the body rotating back and through nicely, particularly we're talking backswing. Get the body rotating without this excessive wrist action. I think that's going to put us in good position to make that crisp, clean downswing.
And so during the backswing, Andrew, what about swing plane?
Once again, nothing,
Different
and this
ways.
is true for anything with golf, nothing excessive.
Yep.
Okay, nothing excessive. We don't want the club going out
Yep.
a long way. We certainly don't want the club head getting in or under the plane, whatever that plane might be. I think we've all got an idea.
Yep.
But we don't want either one. If we can stay relatively on plane, relatively neutral, I'll call it, on the way back and through, that's going to make our life on the downswing, the all-important downswing, that much simpler.
And would you agree with, you take a setup there for me, Mr. Andrew, if I were to just do something simple, like if someone were to draw a line up the shaft,
Yes.
let's say, as an example of a
Yeah.
plane. Because our wedge shots are so short, the swing length is not super long, if you were to keep that, like you said, reasonably close to that line during your backswing, it doesn't require a huge plane shift or anything during the downswing. Is that a fair thing to look for?
Spot on, spot on. And I think players, you know, I haven't really looked into Matthew Wolff's stats when it
Yep.
comes to pitching,
Yep.
okay, like 75 yards and in. But I think that's a shot that might be a challenge for him. His downswing is fabulous
Absolutely.
in the full swing.
Yep.
Okay, it's exactly where it needs to be in the full swing. It's awesome. He's a great young player. I love that he's coming on the scene.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I do think, you know, a 30, 40, 50 yard shot, when you start your swing going that way, you really don't have time to reroute it.
Right.
And that's why in the pitching game, it's so important to stay relatively neutral on the way back, because it makes our job in the downswing simpler.
And something you say in a lot of your videos that I love too is I'm not going to get the words right, but it's almost forget the anomalies. Even if he could get it back with the wedges,
Yeah.
98% of people that would be difficult for. Can we see you do one more just for the
Sure.
backswing pieces there like that?
Am I going to hit this one?
Let's do a good contact here.
Okay, I'm
nice
gonna
crisp
try.
contact. Yeah, love it. And so set up pieces to make it easier. I think that's clear and simple. Backswing, find a middle ground with the
Yes.
hinge. Let's keep the plane neutral. Now, as someone's making a backswing with the 50-yard wedge shot, with the body motions, we're more or less looking for stay centered, not a huge weight shift.
Not a huge weight shift. If anything, the BB on the top of my hat is going to counterbalance just a little bit, and it may shift towards the target. That's something I see some of the best wedgers in the world do, whether they're chipping or pitching.
Yep.
Is just that little counterbalance toward the target, nothing excessive once again.
Yep.
Just that way, that gets us in position for the all-important downswing.
Downswing. So we have to make a downswing as
We
well,
do,
right? We
we
have to
do.
hit the ball. And so let's assume we have a reasonable setup. Let's assume our backswing pieces are in place.
Yes.
What are maybe the top 1 or 2, 3 things to look for into the follow-through, downswing follow-through?
And Eric, I love saying this to my students is, golf is difficult. We all know this. Let's do what we can to make it easier.
Yeah.
Okay, and how can we make it easier? That little demonstration of scraping the club along the ground. How can I swing in a fashion that's going to essentially cause the sole of my club to just skim along the ground beautifully underneath the golf ball and make it easier for me to get that predictable hit? Well, here's what I'm going to look for in the downswing. I don't want my head staying down. As my club head from the top of the backswing, as my club head starts down, I want to sense that not only sense, I want to actually start to raise up and see if I can get taller through the hit. Why? Because as human beings, we have this uncanny ability to be able to adapt and
Yes.
gauge the depth. And people who go down actually get pretty good at going that way with their arms. Well, that's a challenge. That's making it more difficult.
Yeah.
And so if I can get a little taller, I encourage, incentivize my arms to get longer.
Excellent.
And now they can skim along the ground and I can be more predictable.
Can I get you to do one more?
Let's try it.
Let's see what we'll
Okay,
do.
so my primary thought here, and anytime I'm demonstrating wedge shots for people, and this might sound crazy, and that's the reason why I'm going to say it, is
Yeah.
pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up as hard as you can, Andrew. And that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I've got my arms nice and soft. They're not tight or tense, but I'm going to feel pull up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, and that was a nice strike.
So if I'm a golfer and I come in and I say, that sounds good, but my grandfather's been telling me for 15 years that I need to stay down. If I pull up, I'm going to hit a top shot. what do we say to that golfer?
How's your grandfather doing?
Yeah, not so good. Doesn't hit shots like that, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think the golf instruction industry is that much better positioned with technology, with video even, but going beyond that, 3D measuring, we're able to see why people are good and why people are not good, far better than we used to be able to determine 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we've got the information. Guys like you and I, it's our job to have this information, to know it. We don't necessarily have to share it with every single person that comes to work with us,
Yeah.
but we need to be able to understand it. And we can understand that, you know, the best in the world, they don't stay down. The best in the world don't do this with their arms.
Yeah.
And so how can we share a message, a simple, actionable message with our students that allows them to hit better shots and ultimately have more fun?
I love it. I think the proof is in the pudding with anything. I think for you guys watching, if you go and watch good wedge players, doesn't matter if it's a tour player, your buddy down the street, people who are good at wedges are more or less going to do the things we're talking about here. There's evidence in watching them perform it.
For
right?
sure, for sure.
And so, guys, this is the 50-yard basic shot. I think those are some really good things for people to look for to start out with. Now, Andrew is, as I mentioned before, an expert on the wedges. And so a couple of things you can do with, if you want to learn more from Andrew, we do have golf schools, right? We have golf schools through March.
Yep. March, April, May,
Yep.
and October, November.
Awesome.
Would love to have you down. The weather is going to be better than it is. It's a little fresh today, a little fresh and windy.
Beautiful, beautiful resort, guys. If you guys want to come down and spend time with Andrew, would highly recommend that. We will put the link in the description down below for the golf schools. And if you want to learn more on wedges, because we really just scratched the surface in this video, Andrew also did a wedge project that's much more in detail, that from my perspective can really help you take your wedge game to the next level. We'll also put a link in the description down below. Mr. Andrew, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Eric. Enjoyed it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.